Over the years, you have seen videos showing my enthusiasm for the Neo Geo and TurboGrafx, but my first love of gaming are arcade games released during the late 1970s to early 1980s. Whether it be as a kid during the 80s going to Showbiz Pizza, or as a 40-something-year-old hanging out at Barcade, hearing the bleeps and bloops of dozens of arcade games at once never gets old. Whenever you heard those sounds from outside, you had to go in and check it out. The simplicity of the gameplay of titles like Centipede, Miss Pac-Man, or Dig Dug, combined with the difficulty of their mastery, entice us to continuously plunk quarters or tokens in the machines to improve our skills. It was fun to watch highly skilled players in action to learn all the tricks. As I improved my game when I got older, I became the one that people crowded around to watch me play, and it gave me chills.
That is it!
Fuck, man!
Oh, yes!
As we entered the 1990s, the late 70s to early 80s games became harder to find in arcades, though locations here in New York City that I used to visit, such as Chinatown Fair Arcade and Faber's Fascination in Coney Island, still had games from that period. Over the past decade and a half, the dark and noisy vibes of the 1980s arcade scene were revived by venues like Barcade, which has become like a second home to me. During the 32-bit era, companies such as Namco, Konami, Midway, and Capcom released a series of compilations featuring collections of their past arcade hits for players to enjoy at home. I did not hesitate to stock up on these collections back then. For this upcoming series, we will review the compilations released by Namco for the PlayStation known as Namco Museum. Namco Museum consists of 5 volume sets plus a Japan-exclusive Encore collection containing a total of nearly 40 arcade titles released between 1979 to 1990. These games are a combination of major hits, fun but obscure titles, and games that were never previously released outside of Japan. For this series, we will cover the 5 volume sets released in North America, beginning with Volume 1, which was first released in Japan on November 22, 1995, and in North America on July 31, 1996. This set includes Pac-Man, Galaga, Pole Position, Bosconian, Rally X, New Rally X, and Toy Pop. You are treated to a CG intro featuring characters from each game. The game begins in the museum lobby. Go to the information desk to register your name so that you could save your high scores. Then enter the museum to view all the exhibits. Each game has their own exhibit hall featuring artifacts such as promotional flyers, merchandise, marquees, bezels, and printed circuit boards. Some items allow you to zoom in to get a closer look. Print materials are in Japanese because Namco arcade titles were licensed out to companies such as Atari and Bally Midway when they were released in US arcades, thus English promotional materials would have come from those publishers. Exhibits have slideshows of the game's sprites, along with instructions on how to play the games, plus tips and tricks. At the end of each exhibit is a room that's designed in a theme related to each game, such as a speedway for Pole Position, outer space for Bosconian, and a Pac-Man shaped house for the round yellow guy. There's a cocktail cabinet in these rooms where you can play the game. You can also play these games by accessing the game menu when you press the start button. In the lounge area, you can look at magazine covers of past Namco publications, a list of every arcade game Namco produced to date grouped by year, and finally a jukebox where you can listen to each game's tracks and sound effects. Each game fires up with the startup sequence with the jumbled sprites and text, followed by the crosshatch screen. You can reposition the display in that screen. You can adjust the game's options using Dipswitches, which alters settings such as the number of lives, points for extra lives, and difficulty. Pac-Man and Galaga have the option to view the game in arcade vertical mode, which sets the screen on its side as these games ran on vertical monitors in the arcades. A precautionary message about turning over your monitor appears if you display these two games in that mode. Namco arcade games in that era displayed 256 or 288 horizontal lines of resolution in the vertical monitor setup. The PlayStation utilized only 240 horizontal lines for these games, thus it was not possible to display pixel-perfect images of the vertical monitor games on a horizontal screen in its original format. To display the vertical setup on the PlayStation, either the display of the sprites and fonts were compressed, or the play area was displayed on the left side of the screen, which allows the details to remain intact, with data such as scores, round number, and remaining lives, which are normally displayed on the top or bottom of the screen, now shown on the right side. For the first setup, bezel-style artwork is displayed on each side to fill in the empty space, which is a nice touch. Now on to the games. The first game needs no introduction, and that of course is the 1980 classic Pac-Man. You know the drill. You eat dots and power pellets to clear each stage while avoiding the ghosts. Eating power pellets turns the ghost blue for a limited amount of time, during which they can be eaten for extra points. With each passing round, the amount of time to eat the ghost decreases. Eventually the ghosts stop changing color. The speed of Pac-Man and the ghosts intensify the further along you go. Fruit or other objects appear after a certain number of dots are eaten. Gobble them down to boost your score by 100 points for a cherry and up to 5,000 points for a key. The whole game takes place on one maze. A few other tidbits include the game originally being named Pac-Man, but was changed for obvious reasons when it was released in the US. The ghosts have specific behavioral patterns based on their nicknames in the attract screen. They typically travel faster than Pac-Man, especially when he's eating dots. Pac-Man can turn faster than the ghosts, which is useful for evading them. Entering warp tunnels is another good strategy as ghosts move slowly across them. Intermission scenes featuring Pac-Man's interactions with the ghosts would become a staple of this series. Highly skilled players, not me unfortunately, have discovered patterns for maneuvering through the mazes, allowing them to reach the kill screen and achieve perfect scores. The kill screen at round 256 distorts the right half of the maze, making it impossible to complete. Pac-Man was a big influence on other maze chase games I enjoyed, such as Mousetrap, Pepper 2, Lock and Chase, and Ladybug. Pac-Man became a massive pop culture icon during the 1980s, spawning merchandise and media such as wind-up toys, trading cards, flip phones, board games, cereal, pasta, bed sheets, an animated TV series, and much more. I owned and consumed all things Pac-Man back then. Next is Rally X, which is a racing-themed maze chase game released in 1980. The objective is to grab all the flags in each track while not trying to crash into red cars that are chasing you or rocks placed throughout the track. As in most maze chase games, your vehicle moves automatically. You use the controller to turn corners. While your car is running, you have a fuel gauge which slowly depletes. This is accelerated if you use a smoke screen, which is useful for escaping enemy cars. If you run out of fuel, your car will move very slowly, almost guaranteeing that you will get caught by the red cars. There is a radar which shows the location of each flag along with the position of the red cars. You need to keep your eye on both the radar and track. In the first round, there are 3 red cars that come after you. That number increases with each passing round up to a maximum of 8. The number of rocks increases the further along you go as well. Rally X becomes difficult very quickly. The cars are good at trapping you, so you need to use the smoke screen to stun them. Red cars will spin in place for a few seconds if they run into your smoke screen, rocks, or each other. For the scoring system, the first flag you grab in each stage is worth 100 points, with each additional flag increasing in value 100 points at a time up to a maximum of 1,000 points for the 10th and last flag. Picking up the special flag, indicated by a flag with an S, doubles the point values of flags. If you lose a life, the point value of the first flag you grab amongst the remaining flags in the stage is reset back to 100. When you grab the last flag, you're awarded bonus points for any remaining fuel. At the 3rd round and every 4 rounds after that, you play a challenging stage. It's like the regular stages, except the red cars don't move unless you run out of fuel and your car moves faster. This is a great opportunity to boost your score. Beware that you lose a car if you crash into the rocks or the idle cars. New Rally X, released in 1981, is an updated version of Rally X that implemented several changes to make the game easier. In addition, the tracks were recolored to give them a brighter look, and the soundtrack was redone for a more cheerful vibe. The number of red cars in the first stage has been reduced from 3 to 1. The number of red cars in subsequent stages do not increase as quickly as in the first game. The radar now shows the location of the special flag as indicated by a flashing dot. My first instinct is almost always to grab that first. There's now a lucky flag which gives you bonus points based on your remaining fuel. Your fuel gauge replenishes at the point of when you grab the lucky flag. While the scoring system remains the same for Rally X, you don't receive as many bonus points for your remaining fuel. The challenging stages now tell you how many red cars and rocks are placed on the track. For both games, the flag and rock placement within each stage differ every time you play, providing different levels of challenge. I'm sure arcade operators preferred Rally X because of its difficulty, and players enjoyed New Rally X for the longer play sessions. Staying with the racing-themed games, we move on to Pole Position. This 1982 Formula Racer was playable on a variety of cabinets, including a sit-down version providing an authentic racing experience. As a disclaimer, I am terrible at driving games, though I once managed to complete the course in Pole Position at the arcades. The racetrack is set at Fuji International Speedway, with Mount Fuji visible in the background. The arcade version had billboards advertising real-world products such as Pepsi-Cola, Champion spark plugs, and unfortunately Marlboro cigarettes, making it one of the earliest games to provide product placement. The billboards in the US arcade version included Atari-developed or published titles such as Centipede and Dig Dug. This version replaces the ads for real-world products with Namco arcade titles or characters. You begin by completing a qualifying lap to advance to the race. Your lap time determines your position and the number of bonus points you receive upon completion, which ranges from 200 points up to 4,000 points if you secure the pole position. Your score progressively increases as you accelerate. If you take too long to complete a lap, you continue to drive until time runs out and you won't advance. You must complete 4 laps to finish the race. You earn additional time for each lap you complete. There are more cars to dodge compared to the qualifying lap, and some will move, so you need to react quickly to them. Any contact with a car, sign, or billboard blows up your car. There are puddles that slow you down, but if you pass through them at a high enough speed, you won't slow down. Once you complete the course, you earn bonuses based on your remaining time and the number of cars you passed. You still receive the latter bonus if you run out of time. The transition from using a steering wheel to a gamepad can be awkward, as it's very easy to over or understeer during sharp turns. Namco released the Nijicon controller, which has a twisting mechanism in the center, allowing for very precise steering, which is useful for swerving between cars. It takes time getting used to it, but it works. Unfortunately, the speech before and after the qualifying lap are not present, despite being in the jukebox in the museum mode. This version runs at a lower frame rate compared to the arcade. Next on the menu is a personal favorite of mine, and I'm sure for many of you guys as well, and that is none other than 1981's Galaga. This top-down shooter is a sequel to Galaxian, which came out 2 years prior. Both games have the same objective. You control a ship that moves horizontally while shooting at formations of aliens to advance to the next stage. Aliens will break from the group and descend upon the player, firing missiles. Several changes were made from Galaxian to Galaga to enhance the gameplay. In Galaxian, all aliens appear in formation at the start of each round. In Galaga, the aliens enter the screen in clusters, dancing and spinning their way into formation, firing missiles, with some aliens swooping down at the player. Your ship fired 1 missile at a time in Galaxian, but now you fire 2 at a time in Galaga. Beginning at round 4, some aliens will morph into a different species, descending upon the player in groups of 3. Shooting all 3 of them awards a bonus ranging from 1,000 to 3,000 points. The standout feature of Galaga involves the boss aliens. Some will partially descend to unleash a tractor beam. If caught, your ship is sucked into the beam, but it's possible to shoot the boss alien and escape. If unsuccessful, your ship is taken hostage by the alien as indicated by its red color. You then control one of your spare ships, assuming you have at least one left, otherwise it's game over. When you shoot the boss alien that descends with your captured ship, the ship is freed and it joins your current ship to form a twin fighter, doubling your firepower. Taking a hit when you are in twin fighter mode only destroys the ship that was hit. You can always rinse and repeat, but as you progress, the aliens descend faster and more frequently with additional firepower, making you an easy target. I usually will fly solo when things get hairy. When things get hectic, try not to go to the corners to avoid the aliens and their missiles, or else you'll be a sitting duck. If you accidentally shoot your captive ship, then it's lost. If you shoot the boss alien that has your captive ship while it's in formation, your captive ship will descend and shoot you. Do not destroy it. It will escape after its descent and it reappears in the next stage, giving you another chance to free it. Another fun addition are the bonus rounds. Beginning at the third round and every 4 rounds after that, you shoot groups of aliens that dance around the screen in many ways. They don't fire or swoop down at you. You must shoot them before they leave the screen. You receive bonuses for defeating all aliens in a group and a 10,000 point bonus for defeating all aliens in the bonus round. After you lose your last life, stats are displayed for the number of shots fired and hits, along with your successful hit percentage. Next is Bosconian. This 1981 space shooter puts you in control of a starfighter where you must destroy enemy bases. Bosconian is known for its use of speech to alert the player of the dangers surrounding him.
Alert!
Your ship is always fixed at the center of the screen. It moves and shoots in 8 directions. Bullets fire from the front and rear of your fighter. There's a radar indicating the location of each enemy base, which must be destroyed to advance to the next round. Your location on the radar wraps around to the opposite side if you reach any end of the map. Each round has a fixed arrangement of enemy bases. Bases consist of 6 cannons and a core. The cannons shoot bullets and the core opens to release missiles. You can shoot the core when it opens to immediately destroy the base, or you can destroy each of the cannons if you're looking to boost your score. There's also a random assortment of asteroids and mines scattered about. You can shoot them for points. Mines destroy anything in its blast, including your ship, so beware. There are several types of enemy ships that chase after you. The quantity and speed of these ships intensify with each passing round, and the more time you spend on a given round. One way to deal with enemy ships is to lure them into mines. Enemy ships may appear in groups of 5 as announced and indicated on your radar. You're awarded a bonus if you destroy every ship in that cluster. Occasionally a spy ship enters the fray. It's important that you destroy it before it escapes. If unsuccessful, you enter Condition Red, which overwhelms the screen with enemies that aggressively pursue you, making it a nightmare to survive. Bosconian inspired multi-directional fixed position shooters such as Time Pilot, which is another game worth playing. The last game of Volume 1 we will look at is the most obscure, and that is Toy Pop. Released in 1986, this is the only game in this set that was never released outside of Japan. This is a single-screen overhead shooter where the heroes Pino and Akka venture into a castle to rescue their friend. Toy Pop is a 2-player co-op game. The objective is to find hearts to open a door and exit the stage while shooting enemies that appear from generators. You have a time limit to complete each round. If you exit the stage having defeated every enemy, you receive an all-clear bonus along with additional points based on your remaining time. If you exit the stage before defeating every enemy, you don't receive any bonuses. If the timer reaches 0, then the stage fills up with blocks, forcing you to quickly find the hearts to open the exit. This also happens once you open the door and all enemies have been defeated. The stages consist of an assortment of gift boxes, bottles, enemy generators, and castle blocks arranged in a maze-like appearance. Gift boxes and bottles can be shot to reveal items such as weapons, hearts, stars, lucky sevens, food, and more. Most castle blocks are indestructible. Beware that there are bombs which destroys anything in its blast, and spring boxing gloves which temporarily stuns you. There are also bonus stages where you grab as many apples that fall from trees. Enemies come in different varieties. There are soldiers, cars, tanks, bubbles, playing cards, and more. Some enemies shoot projectiles which can be shot by the player. Each enemy requires different weapons for them to be defeated. Soldiers can be taken out with nearly any weapon. You need tires for cars, thumbtacks for bubbles, bombs for tanks, fire for playing cards, and lightning for robots. Lightning also stuns other enemies. At the top left corner of the screen, you'll see an icon of your current weapon alternating with what enemy can be defeated with it. You'll fight multiple enemy types in each stage, making you constantly change weapons. If you collect 3 stars, you get a star bullet which defeats any enemy. Collecting 3 sevens gives you temporary invincibility, allowing you to defeat enemies by touching them. Taking 2 hits from an enemy costs you a life. The first hit strips you down to your skivvies, but you can find a clothes icon to restore your hit points. That wraps up Volume 1. Namco got things off to a great start by providing renowned titles for longtime fans to get reacquainted with, and for new fans to be introduced to. The significance of Namco Museum on the PlayStation was that they were released when these games were less common in arcades and before the existence of MAME. Even when MAME came out, most households did not own PCs or had internet access, including myself. I've had the pleasure and frustration of playing these games in arcade competitions with mostly satisfying results. I would say that Rally X and Pole Position are the most difficult games in this set. Namco Museum Volume 1 sold well enough to receive a Greatest Hits re-release. A few issues I had with Volume 1 was the frequent and long load screens, and you couldn't reset the game during gameplay. For the next video in this series, we will cover Volume 2, which takes the game lineup in a different direction. Stay tuned.